Alright guys, so another use of the unit circle is in the cast diagram. And what you can do with the cast diagram is you can find out whether for the functions sine, cosine, and theta, you'll get a positive or negative value. And you can also use it to find similar triangles. So let's look at the units in this slightly modified unit circle. So we can divide it into 4 quadrants, right? So in the top right, we've got the first quadrant, and going counterclockwise, the second, third, and the fourth. And like a normal circle, the first quarter is 0 to 90 degrees, and the second quadrant is 90 to 180, the third is 180 to 270, and the fourth is 270 to 360. So we can use this to find out whether each function results in a positive or a negative value. And how, you may ask? Well, David already explained that using the unit circle, the cos theta gives the x coordinate, while the sine theta gives the y coordinate as seen here. So if we go to the first quadrant, let's look at this triangle. So we can see that the x coordinate is positive because the triangle is right of the y-axis. So therefore, cosine is positive. We also see that sine is positive because the triangle is above the x-axis, so it's positive. And of course, you guys know about this trig identity. Sine theta over cos theta is equal to tan theta. And because we've got positive values for both sine and cosine, we know that tangent is positive as well. Now let's move on to the second triangle in the second quadrant. So let's imagine there's an angle that goes from this place 0 degrees to until it touches this triangle, and let's call that theta 2, right? Here we can see that sine theta is still positive because the y, because it is still above the x-axis. Therefore, sine theta is positive. However, cosine theta is negative because the triangle is to the left of the y-axis. And because we are dividing a positive by negative, tangent is negative as well. And for the third quadrant, and let's just draw another triangle for this, right? Sine theta is negative this time because the triangle is beneath the x-axis. Further, the cosine theta is negative because the triangle is left of the y-axis. Since we're dividing negative by negative, we get a positive, right? And finally, for the last one, and you just got to imagine that theta 4 stretches from here all the way to here. We can see that sine theta is still negative because the triangle goes from the x-axis to below. So it's negative, right? And then the cosine theta is positive this time because the triangle is to the right of the y-axis. So negative divided by positive. What does that give us? That gives us negative. So from this table, we can see in which quadrants and which functions yield positive or negative results. Okay guys, so moving on, we can just eliminate the unit circle because it doesn't really help us that much anymore. But let's look at the table of results we got over here. So let's put them in this diagram again so I can memorize them easier. So in the first quadrant, we know that sine is positive as seen from the table, cosine is positive, and tangent is also positive, right? Second quadrant, sine is positive, cosine is negative, tangent is also negative. Third quadrant, sine is negative, cosine is negative, tangent is positive. And finally, in the fourth quadrant, sine is negative, cosine is positive, and tangent is negative. So how would we memorize this? Well, there's a very easy acronym that you can all learn, which is ASTC. And the way people tend to memorize which angles and which functions are positive or negative is this acronym. All students take calculus. Alright guys, so when you use all students take calculus, you just take the first letter of each word like here. So you get all, A, students, S, T, and calculus. And if we apply that to the unit circle or this diagram, right, we see that in the first quadrant, all the functions yield positive results. So the A stands for all, as in all functions. In the second quadrant, you can see that only sine is positive, right? So we indicate this by using S in all students take calculus. And the third, we see that only tangent is positive, so therefore the T in take. And lastly, we go to the fourth quadrant where only cosine is positive, and that's where the C in calculus comes from. So by using this simple phrase, I guess, all students take calculus, you can easily memorize which functions are negative in which quadrants and which is the only positive function.